Welcome into a Big 12 Media Days edition of the Golden Blue Nation podcast, brought to you as always by Mountain State Oral and Facial Surgery, your premier dental implant destination. It's Nick Farrell here alongside a hardworking reporter who's making his debut here on the Golden Blue Nation podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in Cody Nespor. You've been reading his work on goldenbluenation.com over the last several weeks since he joined our squad. Making his debut on the GBN pod today, working hard at the Star in Frisco, Texas, covering Big 12 football media days. All right, Cody, how are things treating you at the Star? Did you get to meet any of the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders like Sydney did? And most important question, as you know, we always talk about the food on this podcast. So how was the food?
Yeah, the Star is, this is an unbelievable facility. You probably expect anything Cowboys, like they're not going to skimp on costs. This is an unbelievable, just for their practice facility, it's unbelievable that what they have here. I've been told some high schools get to play games in here, which blows my mind. But unbelievable. It's obviously, I don't know how Vegas was last year, but this is almost a perfect setup for everything the Big 12 wants to do. The food, like I said, breakfast was better than lunch. Had some fluffy scrambled eggs, some good home fries for breakfast, some great. The fruit, usually catered fruit, gets soggy or something. The fruit has been outstanding. That's maybe the best part. And then lunch was just prepackaged sandwiches. Sydney got a spinach wrap with all sorts of doodads in it. I just went turkey sandwich. And the cheerleaders, no, I let Sydney do all that. I didn't want to interrupt her big moment meeting the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. She was on cloud nine meeting those ladies.
I think the first thing that was in our group chat this morning at about 10 a.m. Eastern time was a photo of Sydney with 4 of the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. She's a big fan of the Netflix series. And we're a big fan of Sydney Carriel. All right, Cody. So let's dive in. Obviously, West Virginia did not go today. WVU's day at Big 12 Media Days is tomorrow with the final 8 teams. But we did get remarks, as always, from Commissioner Brett Yormark, who led things off this morning at the Star in Frisco, Texas. When you and I talked last week before you guys departed, I think that we both thought that we would hear a lot about revenue sharing, right? Because that is obviously a gigantic topic throughout college athletics right now. And with the Big 12 being the first conference to host, first Power 4 conference to host its Media Day event, we figured that would be a huge topic for conversation, but it wasn't really the case. There was a little bit of talk about rev share, but really I think the theme to summarize Yormark's remarks as he enters year 3 as the commissioner of the Big 12 Conference was doubling down. And one of the things upon which he doubled down was the college football playoff format, the 5-11 format that's been discussed as expansion talks, again, continue with the CFP. So let's start there, Cody. What did Yormark say about the 5-11 model? And maybe we even back it up just a little bit further. For those who haven't been following the latest CFP expansion conversations, can you introduce us to the 5-11 model and what it could mean for the Big 12 and other Power 4 leagues?
Right. So I think, as most people know, they're looking to expand the CFP from 12 to 16. That vote won't be until the end of the year. And there is discussion when they do expand, how many automatic qualifiers are there and how many at-larges are there. We've heard the Big 10 commissioner mostly spearhead this idea for 4 automatic qualifiers for the Big 10 and SEC and 2 each for the Big 12 and ACC. Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, the ACC commissioner, and even the SEC commissioner have all talked about they prefer 5 plus 11, which is 5 automatic qualifiers for the 5 highest ranked conference champions, which you assume would be the 4 Power 4 champions and the highest group of 5 champion, think Boise State this year, and then 11 at-larges for the rest. And like you said, Yormark was very strongly endorsed that, left very little room for doubt. What he actually said was, this might not be the best for the Big 12 this year, meaning they might not get 2 teams in if there aren't these automatic qualifiers, but this is what's best for the sport, and this is what's best for the conference in years to come. So he left no room for doubt. He likes 5-11. And outside of the Big Ten, a lot of the other commissioners have talked about this 5-11.
I think the thing that's interesting about the 5-11 model, Cody, is what your Mark said is really that college football is college football, right? That's what makes it unique. It's not the NFL. It's not a professional league, even though there are a lot of things changing in terms of revenue sharing. The thing that makes college football unique is that it is college football, and that's what's ingrained in its identity. I also think that there is a great point with just 1 year of evidence on the 12-team CFP is that the lower seeded teams did have a great deal of success in year one. There still needs to be a larger sample size to be able to say that that's going to be the case, that like these buys are actually bad for teams that win conference championships outright. But I do think there's a really great argument for if there's 16 teams, that means somebody's going to have to win 4 games in a row to win. And yeah, that's going to take a toll on players. It's going to be a gigantic grind to go through a month of elimination football games. But that is the way to determine a true champion. And some people have even compared it maybe to what the FCS has done with a 16 team and then a 24 team playoff for the FCS. I don't know. I think it's definitely worth continuing discussions, and I think that it is the best alternative if the college football playoff is going to expand again.
Yeah, you're right. And the big message, not just from your Mark, but from a lot of the coaches that spoke today, was they wanted decided on the field, right? Because when you get the if the SEC gets 4 automatic qualifiers, it's obviously the 2 teams that make the championship game, and then just 2 other teams get to kind of back in. And so that was a big thing. Like, let's the conference champions, yes, let them get in. Everybody else, you just earn it, right? You don't get to go just by virtue of what conference you're in or whatever. Earn it. Play a tough schedule. That's the other part is play. You have to schedule tough games, and you can't just kind of back into this. That's been the big. Beyond even what Yormark said, a lot of the coaches have supported that. Earn it on the field, make the games matter, make the conference championship games matter. And hopefully the rest of the chips fall how they should.
And that's been the argument for the CFP forever, right? That it should be decided on the field. It's why fans didn't really love the BCS with the computers deciding things. So that is the argument for why a 16-team CFP is the right move if the tournament is going to expand again. So that was one category for doubling down for the Big 12 conference. We are in as a conference for a 16-team playoff. Another area in which Yormark doubled down, and this has been a theme for him since he took the reins of the conference from Bob Bowlesby, the former commissioner, is that he has continued to double down on this stance, that the Big 12 is the most competitive league in college football, the league with the most parity. That was certainly on display at times last year, but there was an interesting question asked of Yormark. Can that really be true if multiple teams are not CFP contenders? Last year, Arizona State surprised everybody, made a great run, won the Big 12 championship, earned a bye in the CFP as an automatic qualifier by winning the Big 12 conference. But it was pretty clear that at that point that really it was going to be the champion of the Big 12 and no one else getting into the tournament last year. How important, Cody, will it be for the Big 12 to have multiple contenders for those at-large bids to really be able to continue to make that claim about parity and about competitiveness in the conference?
Yeah, and something Yormark said, he actually kind of said he hopes that elite brands will kind of emerge in the conference where they're always in contention. Think about Alabama and Clemson in the ACC. The Big 12 doesn't have that. They haven't had that in the playoff era. And he's just kind of saying, hopefully that does happen. And I thought that was a little strange for as much as he preaches parity. Here he is saying that he hopes there is a dominant team that's in there every year. And part of that, I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later, Nick, part of that is getting rid of the preseason poll. So there can't be a worst to first situation in outside prospectors look in and say, well, look, the worst team in the Big 12 won the conference. They must be terrible. And so Yormark just said, well, we'll just get rid of that, and that narrative can't exist anymore. But yeah, I thought really interesting for him to say he hopes that elite brands develop. Right, as much as he preaches parity, that it kind of goes against that.
Okay, let's just dive into the preseason poll thing then, Cody, since you brought it up. Yesterday, the preseason All Big 12 team was announced. Jaheim White was West Virginia's lone representative on that team. First WVU running back to earn a spot on the preseason All Big 12 roster since 2017. One thing that the league will not be doing this year is put out a preseason coaches poll that has famously been quite wrong in the last few years, including wrong about West Virginia 2 years ago when the Mountaineers were picked to finish last in the league and ended up finishing top 5 as a 9-win team. So the conversation today has been, well, in the transfer portal era, it's really hard to pin down exactly what teams are going to be good, what teams are going to be bad, and it does a disservice to those teams who are projected to be bad if they end up being very good like Arizona State was last year. So it probably is the best move for the conference to just abandon it in the current atmosphere in college football because, nobody knows. I mean, I think that there are some coaches who still don't even really know what they have at this point, right? It's all so hard. In the era of roster management, it's so hard to know what you have until you go out there and play a couple of games and really get a feel for the identity of your team.
Right, and on top of, obviously, we saw Arizona State. I said they went worst first, but obviously they weren't actually the worst. It just in the preseason poll, the media voted them that. And we saw it even more to an extreme. Remember, Florida State was a top 10 preseason team last year. They played, obviously they were terrible. They played the week 0 game. Boston College gets a top 10 upset. But Florida State was nowhere close to being a top 10 team. And so I think preseason polls by and large very recently have seemed to fall out of favor. And a lot of that is the portal. Like it's so hard to project. I mean, you and I are in Morgantown. We have trouble projecting this team because there's so many new players and you just have no idea. And your mark, I mean, very flatly said, like, there's no use to a preseason. Like, it's only negatives. There's just no usefulness for it. They did say that it won't necessarily go away for every sport. The football coaches decided not to do it. So there may be basketball polls in all the Olympic sports, but with how harsh your mark was, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there are no more preseason Big 12 polls.
I had to look it up because I had forgotten what Florida State's final record was. 2-10 overall last year, 1-7 in the ACC. That was a team that was projected to be good, but clearly never was. It's the perfect example of why preseason media polls just aren't really a good benchmark for anything. And maybe you can make an argument that they never were, but they definitely aren't now in the era of the transfer portal. And I think that there is some maybe interesting argument about keeping it for other sports, but for football, for sure, it's definitely a thing of the past for now. You mentioned some of those other sports, and I know that this is a football-centric event, but there is one thing on the theme of doubling down that I did just want to quickly point out, Cody, and it's that your mark says that the Big 12 is going to double down on Olympic sports and women's basketball in the era of revenue sharing. And I think that that's super interesting for a lot of reasons. For one, a lot of fans are always going to be focused on football and men's basketball, right? It's just kind of the way that things are. But Olympic sports will continue to have a place in college athletics and are extremely important in their own right for a lot of these institutions, including WVU, which has rich tradition in women's soccer. It has a budding baseball program that's been to a super regional in back-to-back years. I know the rifle and men's soccer teams are technically not Big 12 sanctioned schools, but look at what they've accomplished over the last handful of years, including a national championship for the rifle team just a few months ago. But I want to focus in on the women's basketball piece, Cody, because things have really exploded in that sphere over the last several years. And a lot of it has to do with the success of Caitlin Clark. But even here locally in Morgantown, we've seen what having some type of star power like JJ Quinterly can do. The Coliseum has been a really tough environment in women's basketball. The Mountaineers have won some huge games at the Coliseum last year under Mark Kellogg, going undefeated at home, I think, for just the 4th time in program history. I'm just curious to get your reaction to your Mark's comments about doubling down on women's basketball and what that could mean for a league that is already one of the best, if not the best, year in and year out in men's basketball, and maybe could become that in women's basketball with the right backing and the right resources.
Yeah, I think the Big 12 has been doing that, and for your mark to, as we say, double down on it is very good. I think we've seen, joining the women's conference tournament with the men's tournament in Kansas City, making it one sort of 2 week long big event. I think that's really good because that kind of lowers the barrier for media to have to pick one or the other. And we've seen, you talk about West Virginia women's basketball, TCU women's basketball, Iowa State women's basketball, very exciting the last few years. What's the expressions like rising tide lifts all ships? Mm-hmm. That's what Caitlin Clark did. And even though she's gone, even though Paige Beckers is gone, Juju Watkins isn't going to play forever. Women's basketball is in a boom. The Big 12, it's almost like they were ahead of the curve on bringing it into the men's and focusing on it a little bit more. And when he says they're just going to continue that and amplify that, that's just in a business sense, that's a great source of revenue if the women's game is just going to keep exploding. It is, the one thing he did say about revenue share, he was asked about it, but he basically punted the question, just said, well, that's up to every school to decide. I think maybe from the league's perspective, if they can make women's basketball or softball or women's soccer enticing, have their conference tournaments be big events, maybe the institutions themselves want to put more money into those sports, want to divvy up the rev share differently. And of course, Texas Tech softball, Arizona baseball in the College World Series, if you get really, really good teams, that's just more exposure for your conference in the national tournament. I mean, there were how many Big 12 teams just in the baseball national tournament that just made the regionals? And even if they didn't advance, they were in the regional, getting the conference name out there. And I mentioned Texas Tech softball. How big of a story was that when they beat Oklahoma, right? And to go on. And so there's a very clear incentive for the Big 12 to do that. And I was almost, I think a question, I didn't think of this until after, a question for your mark would be, is there thoughts to add men's soccer? They're not going to add rifle because rifle's a homogenous one conference. Right. But are there thoughts to maybe sanction more sports that your schools do play and make it so that WU's men's soccer doesn't have to play in the Sun Belt, right? And things like that. That would have been an interesting question. But yeah, I think in women's basketball specifically, I think they've already done that, like I said, and I think it'll be interesting to see what, in your mark's mind, even going beyond that will look like.
Okay, let's take a listen to some of the comments from Brett Yormark earlier today at the Star in Frisco, Texas, as he opened up Big 12 Media Days.
Looking ahead, our focus remains on thriving in this new era of college athletics. Strengthening our football product remains essential. We are committed to continued investment and growth. Every school in our league has committed to providing the highest level of benefits to our student athletes. And once again, I believe we will be the deepest football conference in America. No league offers the competitive balance that we do. Last season, the Big 12 led the nation in fourth quarter lead changes and go-ahead scores in the final minute of conference games. And this year, our star power, especially at quarterback, will be on full display. The Big 12 returns 9 starting quarterbacks who threw for over 2,400 yards last season. The rest of the Power 4 combined, just 11. We also boast one of the nation's top coaching lineups, from Hall of Famers to rising stars. I fully expect the Big 12 to earn multiple college football playoff bids this year, and to show once again that we can compete with anyone. Speaking of the CFP, we continue to believe the 5-11 model proposed by the Big 12 and the ACC is the right playoff format for college football. We want to earn it on the field. We do not need a professional model because we are not the NFL. We are college football, and we must act like it. There is nothing in sports like college football, and we must protect what makes it special and do what's right for the fans and the game. Beyond football, growing our commercial business remains a top priority for our conference. We continue to lead as a conference of innovation, pushing boundaries, and creating new opportunities. Our PayPal partnership is a perfect example of how we're leveraging the full scale of a 16-team league. This requires great collaboration with our schools and their MMR partners. We have strengthened our business and brand infrastructure to ensure we can execute at the highest levels while supporting our schools more effectively. Last week, we announced a new leadership structure featuring Chief Brand and Business Officer Farrell and COO and GC Jessica Presnell, who will play a key role in this effort. We have also consolidated all of our business verticals under Big 12 enterprises to create a more seamless approach for the marketplace. This restructuring positions us for long-term success in the evolving college athletics landscape. From a brand perspective, the Big 12 profile is as strong as it's ever been. We truly have become a national conference, and our narrative has extended beyond the sports page. This year, you'll see us double down in that effort, including exploring documentaries and storytelling opportunities, new ventures in licensing and collectibles, a continuation of our partnership with WWE, and a new partnership that will give every Big 12 student athlete their own custom app, completely free, to help build their personal brand. Establishing and maintaining our position within the Power Four also remains a key priority for us. And frankly, I feel better about our position than ever before. I will continue to collaborate with my commissioner colleagues on a new governance model that will provide the Power Four with more autonomy and influence around decision-making in key areas. We anticipate this being done sometime in August. We will also advance our work with the College Sports Commission and CEO Brian Seeley. One of the primary goals of CSC is to change the market from pay-for-play to a market of true third-party NIL. The CSC's enforcement of punitive measures towards those who break the rules will change behavior in college athletics. It is crucial that CSC leadership, my Power Four colleagues, and I continue to spend the time necessary to guide and partner with our schools into this new age of college athletics. Alongside the CSC, we will still need congressional help, and we continue to work towards that. This is a defining moment for all of us, and one that we need to take full advantage of. There has never been a better time to be part of the Big 12 than right now. Our football product will compete at the highest levels. We've been the best conference in men's basketball over the last 10 years, and we are doubling down on women's basketball and Olympic sports. We have a board and AD room that is unified with a clear vision for the future. We are in a period of change and growth for our industry. But as we enter into this new year, I can promise one thing: the Big 12 remains open for business. We will continue to reside at the intersection of sport, culture, and business. We truly are a different league.
That's just a piece of Brett Yormark's press conference to open Big 12 Football Media Days. You can watch the full thing at goldenbluenation.com. And if you happen to be on goldenbluenation.com listening to this podcast, maybe you're also watching it too. That's right. Huge day here for the Golden Blue Nation podcast presented by Mountain State Oral and Facial Surgery, your premier dental implant destination. It's a shadow drop of sorts, our first video podcast, and more of them will be coming your way this summer as we get closer to college football season. We're really excited to be bringing you a video version of this podcast. It'll be available at goldenbluenation.com on the Golden Blue Nation YouTube channel and on the free Golden Blue Nation app. We encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can find tons of video content like press conferences from the Big 12 Media Days and also future episodes of the Golden Blue Nation podcast. If you're an audio-only listener, don't worry, nothing is changing. You'll still be able to listen to every episode wherever you get your shows, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or if you just listen on our website, goldenbluenation.com, or on the free Golden Blue Nation app. Just to reiterate, nothing is changing. If you like to listen in the car when you're on your way home from work, we encourage you to continue doing that. But if you'd like to watch, you also have that ability now. Okay, time for a quick break. Then we'll look ahead to day 2 of Big 12 Football Media Days and set the stage for Coach Rodriguez's first appearance at the event. That's after this.
The reason I came to the practice was because I had had some teeth extracted and I wanted to get some replacements for it. We did a treatment plan to see how many implants they were going to place, and now I'm actually just waiting to get the crowns. The thing I like the most about coming here, I was greeted with a smile, everything ran smooth, and that they were really going to do what I wanted them to do to make my smile a little better. They're some of the best doctors, and you will get good quality care.
Searching for a mortgage lender that's 100% local, personal, and focused on home loans? First Green Mortgage has been serving West Virginia for more than 35 years, and they can assist you with every step of your home ownership journey. Visit them in Bridgeport or Morgantown or at fgm.bank.
Back here on the Golden Blue Nation podcast, brought to you as always by Mountain State Oral and Facial Surgery, home of the same-day smile. Let's welcome back in Cody Nespor as we wrap up this episode, the premier video podcast episode of the GBN pod. All right, Cody, quickly, any other takeaways from the 8 coaches who spoke on day 1 of Big 12 Media Days?
Just that it sounds like it's going to be the year of the quarterback in the Big 12. The conference had a great stat. 7 quarterbacks in the conference are returning to their schools that threw for at least 2,400 yards last year. In the entire rest of college football, there's only 9. So in terms of returners, experienced returners, productive returners, the Big 12 has by far the most in the country.
Very good. And of course, West Virginia does not have one of those big-time returners, but does have a returner who has started in Nico Marchiol, of course, to be determined if he will be the week 1 starter for Coach Rodriguez, who speaks tomorrow at 12:40 Eastern Time. He's bringing along wide receiver Jaden Bray, offensive lineman Landon Livingston, and defensive lineman Eddie Vestorinen, who had his season last year shortened due to a season-ending injury. Maybe give us a teaser, Cody. What can we expect from Coach Rodriguez, and where can fans watch?
Yeah, so I think maybe people were disappointed with the players that are coming, right? No quarterback, no Jaheim White. But these are guys that there are storylines, right? Bray and Eddie V, they got their seasons wiped out last year with injuries. Livingston is stepping into some huge shoes, presumably the starting center. There are questions to ask these guys. There are answers to hear. In Rich Rod, it's wide open, right? It's going to be his first time, obviously, in the Big 12 and in front of Big 12 media. And I'm sure they're infinitely more curious about him than maybe we are in Morgantown, just because we know so much already. But I'm sure he's going to get a wide range of questions. Big 12 Media Days is being broadcast by ESPN. It's all on ESPN Plus. Some of it is going on ESPN2. They're not telling us which parts exactly, but definitely it's all on ESPN Plus if anybody wants to watch live.
Very good. And of course, we will recap it all for you right here on the Golden Blue Nation podcast tomorrow. And we'll also bring you Rich Rodriguez's press conference after it airs on ESPN on our website, goldenbluenation.com, and the free Golden Blue Nation app. Last thought, Cody, have you and Sydney discussed dinner plans yet? Is it barbecue tonight, perhaps?
It's got to be either barbecue or Tex-Mex. I don't know. We have to get both. One of them will be tonight. One will be tomorrow. Looking
for a full review of Coach Rodriguez's comments and dinner from Cody Nespor, Golden Blue Nation's digital content producer. Cody, thank you for all of your insight today, and congratulations on your GBN pod debut.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you.
All right, that's a wrap on this edition of the Golden Blue Nation podcast. Back tomorrow to recap West Virginia's day at Big 12 Football Media Days. If you like our show, make sure to subscribe to it wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. And again, check out our YouTube channel for Golden Blue Nation. Subscribe there so that you can watch future video podcast episodes. That's a wrap. I'm Nick Farrell signing off. This has been the Golden Blue Nation podcast presented by Mountain State Oral and Facial Surgery, home of the same-day smile.